All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to talk about something pretty wild. A way to take an idea from just a thought in your head to something real with actual paying customers and do it all in a single weekend. Yeah, you heard that right. Let's dive in.
Okay, but before we get to the good stuff, we need to talk about a trap. A trap that so many of us, especially creators and entrepreneurs, fall into. It's what we'll call the grind trap. You know the one. That voice in your head that says the only way to succeed is to just work yourself into the ground, pulling those 100-hour weeks.
And what happens? It turns into this brutal cycle, right? You get super excited, you work like crazy, and then boom, burnout. You abandon the project, your confidence takes a huge hit, and you're left with this pile of unfinished ideas. We're going to see this firsthand through the story of a developer named Jarred. He was stuck deep in this trap, wondering if he was just another dreamer who couldn't actually make things happen. So, Jarred decided he had to break this cycle. And his solution was, well, it was to think smaller, a lot smaller. Instead of aiming for some massive world-changing idea, he decided to focus on just one tiny personal problem, something he could realistically solve in just one weekend. And this is how he did it. He literally set a timer for 15 minutes and just jotted down everything that had bugged him recently. Little things, big things, whatever. And as you can see from this list, one thing really jumped out at him. This nagging problem of not being able to remember which cannabis strain helped with what. That right there was it. A small, real, authentic problem. And just like that, his weekend project, WeedStrainScore, was born. So he gave himself this crazy deadline, just 48 hours. From Friday night to Sunday night, he had to go from nothing but that idea to a live product that people could actually use. This is the essence of the 48-hour sprint. So let's follow along and see exactly how he pulled it off. Okay, so Saturday morning rolls around, and Jarred doesn't open up a code editor and start typing from a blank screen. No way. The very first thing he does is choose his leverage. Think of leverage as the tools and platforms that let you do more with less effort. And here's the tech stack he landed on. You got Bubble for the front end, which is a no-code platform, Airtable for the database, it's basically a super-powered spreadsheet, and then ChatGPT and Zapier to connect everything and add some AI smarts. The most important part here? He wasn't a master of any of these things. He was using them as shortcuts to build something in a weekend that, not too long ago, would have taken a team of developers months to build. This brings us to a really cool idea called the micro-skills sprint. It's all about learning just enough to get the job done. So instead of getting bogged down in weeks of online courses to master Bubble, what did Jarred do? He found a 20-minute YouTube video on how to build a simple rating app, cranked it up to 1.5x speed, and then immediately started applying what he saw. It's learning by doing, not learning by watching. Of course, he eventually hit a wall. He had this idea for a more complex, multidimensional rating system, and it was just a little too advanced for Bubble's out-of-the-box features. Now, the old way of thinking would be, okay, I guess I need to stop everything and go learn JavaScript for a week. But with modern leverage, he just had to ask the right question. He fed a prompt to ChatGPT, basically explaining what he was trying to build, and boom, it spit out the exact JavaScript code he needed. That's the game changer right there. Using a tool to get something done in minutes that used to be a massive, time-consuming roadblock. And he had a rule for himself to avoid that frustration spiral. It's called the 15-minute rule. It's simple. If you're stuck on a problem for 15 minutes and making zero progress, you stop. You just stop grinding. You ask for help. In his case, he just hopped onto a community forum, asked his question, and got his answer. This little rule is so powerful for keeping the momentum up and avoiding that burnout we talked about. So get this. By Saturday evening, less than 24 hours in, Jarred had a working app, live on the internet. But building the thing is only step one. Now comes the really scary but most important part, showing it to people and seeing what they think. He shot the link over to about 15 friends and family. And the feedback came back fast. The verdict? They loved the concept, but the experience, not so much. They were running into what's called the cold start problem. Imagine signing up for an app and it's just empty. No screens to look at, no ratings to read. There was nothing to do. It was a ghost town. So Sunday morning, it was time to fix this. Now, he could have tried to license expensive data, but that's slow and costly. Instead, sticking with the leverage theme, he wrote a quick little Python script. It just went out to some public Reddit forums and scraped the data he needed. And in just a couple of hours, his empty app was suddenly alive, pre-filled with 50 popular strains for people to browse. Okay, so now the app is actually useful from the moment you sign up. Time for launch number 2. This time, he went to where his target users actually hang out, a relevant Reddit community. And he didn't pretend to be some big, fancy company. He was just honest. Hey, I'm a solo dev. I built this thing to solve my own problem. I'd love to hear what you think. He replied to every single comment, and the community's reaction was, well, it was amazing. So let's look at the results. By the end of the day on Sunday, so right at that 48-hour mark, WeedStrainScore had more than 100 people signed up. And these weren't just passive users. The community had already jumped in and submitted almost 200 of their own ratings. And get this, he actually had 3 people who liked it so much, they started paying for it. $15 in monthly recurring revenue. No, $15 might not sound like a lot, but it's everything. It's proof. This was no longer just a weekend project. It was a real, validated business. So, what can we learn from all this? The point is, Jarred's story isn't some one-off stroke of luck. It's a system, a repeatable playbook that anyone can use to get that fast, real-world validation for an idea. And this playbook has a name, Vibe Founding. And this table does a great job of showing just how different this approach is. You know, the traditional way is to get your house in order, build a perfect product, and wait for a big launch. Vibe Founding says, no. Build something good enough, get it out there fast, and learn from what your users actually do. It completely flips the script. So let's just boil it down to the core principles. You're compressing the timeline from months to days. You're starting with a real problem you actually have. You use those micro-skill sprints to learn on the fly. And you're using all the leverage you can get from tools and online communities. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is validation. It turns the whole entrepreneurial journey from this long, painful marathon into a series of short, exciting, motivating sprints. And I think Jarred's quote here really captures the whole mindset shift perfectly. He went from 0 to a living thing with paying users in 40 hours. And that's just step 1. See, the weekend isn't the end. It's not about having a finished company by Sunday night. The weekend is the start. It's the starting pistol that tells you whether you've got an idea that's even worth running the race for. Ultimately, what this story proves is that the barrier to entry for creating something real has just plummeted. With the tools we have today and this kind of focused, weekend-sized approach, that idea you've been kicking around, turning it into something people can use, something people might even pay for, it's never been more possible. Which really just leaves one question, doesn't it?